Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro. 1, 2, 3.
Oh yeah, what's going on, Vegas? It is the Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro, so glad you could join us on a Tuesday. Back at you, baby. A lot to get to. Jam-packed show, as always. Coming up here in just a few minutes, we're going to be talking to Daniel Lippman from Politico. Oh, yeah, this Syria story is getting bigger and bigger, and there's a lot of Republicans that are not happy with the president's decision. Coming up here at the bottom of the hour, have you ever ran a business or, own a house, whatever the case may be, where people just happen to defecate and urinate in front of your business? Well, we have a guest coming in studio. His name is Gerald Gillick. He is a lawyer in town. He runs a firm downtown Las Vegas. I don't mean to laugh at this, but it's so ridiculous. It's terrible. He's going to be coming in studio. Apparently, a bunch of homeless people on a regular basis are squatting, urinating, and defecating in front of his business. And it sounds like what is the biggest nightmare you could have? This is it.
I mean, that is a dangerous homeless trifecta.
As opposed to maybe walking into your business and defecating, the worst thing is right outside your business. So, Gerald,
it's common practice on the West Coast these days.
So he's going to be coming in. He's not a happy camper. Apparently, he's had to buy a lot of toilet paper for these people over the course of the last few months or so. So he's going to be coming in a few minutes to talk about that. It's going to be interesting, that's for sure. Make sure you're not eating breakfast while you're listening. That's a recommendation I have for you. And then coming up in hour number 2, this is a wild story, JD. A mom recently turned her son in because her son said that he was planning a mass shooting in his school. And we have the audio to prove it. That son is now behind bars. She is a hero. So we're going to discuss that coming up here in hour number 2. He wanted to do it on the same day of the anniversary of the Columbine shooting. So that's a big story. We'll talk about that. There is a huge poker scandal rocking the poker world. Have you heard about this? A guy was playing in a high-stakes poker game. And there was a live stream of this cash game that was going on. And apparently he was cheating. He had the live stream apparently on his cell phone, either that or he was having friends text him. He won like close to $100,000 because he cheated. He knew what the hole cards were, his opponents. So we're going to be talking about that coming up in hour number 3. It's a big story rocking the poker world. And also in hour number 3, Brian Salmon, who is the lead sports anchor there at Channel 3, will be joining us, breaking down a huge hockey game tonight. The Boston Bruins and the Vegas Golden Knights. So the Bruins are arguably, I would say, the best team in the East and certainly one of the teams that is favored to win the Stanley Cup. So that is the game tonight. So we're going to preview that with Brian Salmon. Also talk a little UNLV, Zion making a debut in preseason yesterday, and he posterizing players already in his preseason. Crazy stuff. And, of course, the MLB playoffs are heating up. We got a Game 5 tomorrow, of course. We got a lot of stuff to talk about with the Dodgers too, because they might blow it.
2 Game 5s tomorrow.
Yes, the Dodgers might blow it. Washington is the real deal. They're a very, very good team, and I'll tell you what: if the Dodgers lose,
Dave Roberts is gone.
He's got to be gone.
He's absolutely gone.
They were one of the favorites to win it all this year. Okay.
And I think you have to trade Kershaw.
So what I want to do right now is I want to talk about this big situation involving Syria and the impeachment process. We'll get to the impeachment stuff in a little bit. But as you know, President Donald Trump made a decision to pull U.S. troops out of northeastern Syria as Turkey prepares for a military assault against the Kurdish fighters who helped the U.S. battle the Islamic State. Well, guess what? There's a lot of Republicans that are speaking out against the president's decision. You're not going to believe who is. Let's start with Lindsey Graham, who seems to have been wearing the Donald Trump knee pads for several years now. But Lindsey Graham is speaking out against Donald Trump's decision here. Here's Lindsey in his own words.
I expect the American president to do what's in our national security interest. Mm-hmm. It's never in our national security interest to abandon an ally who's helped us fight ISIS. It's never in our national security interest to create the conditions for the reemergence of ISIS.
Apparently, God is also not on his side on this one, as Pat Robertson also joined into the chorus of this. Here's Pat Robertson in his own words.
I am absolutely appalled that the United States is going to betray those democratic forces in northern Syria, that we possibly going to allow the Turkish to come in against the Kurds. And the president who allowed Khashoggi to be cut in pieces without any repercussions whatsoever is now allowing the Christians and the Kurds to be massacred by the Turks. And I believe, and I want to say this with great solemnity, the President of the United States is in danger of losing the mandate of heaven if he permits this to happen.
So I never thought I would see the day that both Pat Robertson and Lindsey Graham were criticizing the President of the United States. Guess what? It doesn't end there. Former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, also criticizing the president on social media, saying, we must always have the backs of our allies if we expect them to have our back. The Kurds were instrumental in our successful fight against ISIS in Syria. Leaving them to die is a big mistake. I agree with Nikki Haley. I am glad, I don't know why it took this long, but I am glad that Senator Lindsey Graham is speaking out against the president, because I think this is a horrendous decision by the President of the United States. I question the timing of it. Is he doing it as a distraction as we are in the process of an impeachment inquiry here? Is it a distraction? I don't know. It also comes at a time where the State Department is blocking an ambassador from testifying in the Trump impeachment inquiry. We have a lot of things going on here, but this cannot be good for the President of the United States. It's not good when your closest personal allies are speaking out against you. JD, we have a lot of Republicans right now that are not happy with the president's decision. So what do you make of all this?
It's pretty clear that Lindsey Graham likes war, and it's very interesting that Pat Robertson mentioned that losing the mandate from God. I do agree with the fact that we can't just abandon a ally who has been very, very helpful and especially the fact that Donald Trump, a lot of his running words were, we're gonna destroy ISIS, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, and ISIS has been definitely affected since Donald Trump's become president. But yeah, the people that we're abandoning helped us a lot in making that happen.
We're leaving them to die, is what Nikki Haley says. And
I think that's probably a stretch, but we're definitely not helping them not to die.
Well, listen, you withdraw troops, they're on their own. And those troops are in harm's way. And if those troops, many of those troops do lose their lives, who's to blame for this? Obviously, the terrorists. What about the American troops that are not there, that are leaving? This is a decision that Donald Trump made. Is it possible that he made this decision? And again, I'm speculating here. Is it possible that he made this decision or a controversial decision like this during this impeachment inquiry? Is it possible that it could be a deflection from, and by the way, it's not, because even though the news, and we're all talking about this because it's a big decision, and the Republicans are talking about it and they're attacking the president, this isn't a positive story. This isn't something where Republicans are going to stand up and say, you know what, Mr. President, I'm so glad you did this. Mr. President, I'm so glad you withdrew troops from Syria. This was a great decision. I haven't heard one Republican stand up and say that. And these are staunch supporters of the President of the United States. Find me someone that's not more of a staunch supporter of the president than Lindsey Graham or Pat Robertson. Joining us on the line right now from Politico, we have Daniel Lippman, who has done a fantastic job. Politico doing a great job covering this story. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Okay, so Daniel, here's what I just did. I just set up this story in Syria. I played some audio from Lindsey Graham denouncing the president's decision, even Pat Robertson, Nikki Haley. So I guess here's my first question. Why is it now that all these Republicans are coming out, speaking out against the president's decision? Why did it take them this long, and why is it this subject?
Well, I think they view this as something that is, would be a tragedy for America and a disgrace if we let down our Kurdish allies. And so, they're very, I think, we can trust that they, believe that America should stand by our friends in the Middle East, especially the Kurds, who are pretty pro-American, and that this kind of drives them into the hands of, the Assads.
So I'm speculating here, Daniel. That's what we do. And I'm saying to myself, I question the timing of this decision. Do you think that there is any chance, based on everything that is going down with this impeachment inquiry and the troubles that the president is facing right now, do you think that there is a chance that he made this controversial decision not because he personally believes that those troops should be withdrawn, but because he wanted a deflection? He wanted the news cycle. He wanted them talking about something else. Do you believe that that's a possibility, or do you think that's a stretch to feel that way?
I don't think it's out of question, because that's what I'm hearing from some, former White House officials I talked to.
Really?
They
Wow.
kind of see the writing on the wall that this is, something that is convenient timing. But we should also remember that the Turks were about to do this military offensive in the first place, and they did talk to Erdogan did talk to Trump on Sunday about this, telling him, that this was going to happen, and telling him that he has to decide about whether to keep U.S. troops in that area. And then Trump acted quickly, although the State Department and Defense Department, they all opposed this. And so I don't think that, that's the way decision making is supposed to go in the national security realm in Washington.
I mean, listen, Donald Trump has, as you know, Lindsey Graham is a staunch supporter of this guy. He has that support on the right. How can this help him, though? And I do understand the way he thinks. It wouldn't surprise me if this was a deflection. But when you have everything else that's going on with this man, and you have so many Republicans on the right that have been defending him, don't you think this could be the last straw? And don't you think that some people on the right could stop supporting him and maybe say to yourself, that's it, I've had it with this guy behind closed doors?
Well, there's always talk about, things when this is the last straw, Trump is going to lose his support, and he never seems to lose it. And so it's kind of like waiting for Godot here. But I think that, we have to be prepared for that this will go away soon, this news story, and then the outrage machine will move to something else. And so I don't think that this is something that Republicans this is not a hill to die on for them, that they will, of course, oppose this decision, and they might sanction Turkey. But,
right.
This is kind of they're willing to break with Trump on this, but then also support him in his impeachment effort.
Bizarre. Daniel, I certainly want to get to a few other quick stories with you, if I may. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Daniel Lippman from Politico. Daniel, what do you make of this story now? The State Department blocking the ambassador from testifying in this impeachment inquiry, and Schiff has been on the record saying that this is a good case for obstruction. What do you make of this story?
Well, this is something that was kind of expected, because they don't want Democrats to use whatever Sondland tells them in their own inquiry, and so they're going to fight, lots of these subpoenas and lots of these interviews as much as they can, because Gordon Sondland, the ambassador to the EU, was in the middle of all of this, and so he knows a lot, and they're trying to prevent Democrats from finding out about what exactly is in his brain,
right.
And what's in his notebooks too. And
right.
So this is not a surprising tactic by the Trump White House and the State Department.
I find it interesting, of course, Donald Trump talking about how, he said it in front of you guys, right? He said he wanted China to investigate Biden and his son, and then you have all these Republicans, not all of them, but many of them, as you've seen, Daniel, saying, oh, he wasn't serious, he was just joking. First of all, Daniel, as the White House correspondent here for Politico, do you think that the president was joking when he talked about China investigating Biden and his son, and what do you make of China rejecting it?
He didn't seem to be joking when he actually said this, and so I would cast doubt on that in terms of its credibility. He seemed pretty serious about, wanting to China to investigate the Bidens. So we kind of have to take him at his word that this is something that he wants. And so that's the issue kind of with the president, that he just says whatever's on his mind. And I would not, we can often tell when he's joking. He'll say stuff in a more joking manner, but this is not, I don't think this is in that category.
Yeah. So Danny, you've been doing this for a while. When was the last White House press briefing? I can't recall. When was the last one?
It was during Sarah Sanders' tenure.
That's unbelievable. So what do you think?
5 months ago, yeah.
So what do people like you who do this for a living and you're very good at it, what do people like you and some of your coworkers think about all this? I mean, we're in unprecedented territory, right? 5-6 months ago since they've had a White House press briefing. Why, number one, and what do you make of that?
Well, one, Stephanie Grisham has been getting up to speed on policy issues, but that's kind of a long. You can do that for a while because policy always changes, and so I think they are kind of short-staffed in the White House press office a little bit, but they don't want to. They want to go on camera when they feel like it, and so there is this issue that they don't want to kind of get mocked by the media, and they don't want to provide a platform for TV reporters to grandstand. And so, for me, I don't need to go to the White House much, even though I cover it. I do my own stories, and I have my own sources, and those press briefings were never helpful to me, and so I don't miss them that much. Although, there's other reporters who do like go into them.
So back to the troops situation, considering the consistent backlash from Lindsey Graham and Pat Robertson, et cetera, do you believe that Donald Trump will backtrack on his statement, or what do you think the likelihood of this actually happening is?
Well, he already went back on his statement almost a year ago when he announced the U.S. was pulling out entirely of Syria, and then we kept 450 so troops in. And so I don't think that he's going to backtrack again, but you never know with this president. He was, calling the president a lot about this issue, and so, he doesn't really have fixed political beliefs, and so he kind of just does what he wants. And so we're in a case where he's not that invested, but he's always liked strongmen, and Erdogan is the strongest of them.
In this situation, if he were to withdraw all the troops from Turkey and Syria, would this help Vladimir Putin and Russia?
Yeah, because it would strengthen the Assad regime, and that's the regime that's being supported by Vladimir Putin and Russia. And so this is all the interests are aligned here that Trump doesn't seem to care about helping Putin in this critical part of the world.
All right, Daniel, this is the last question for you. This is your expertise. You cover the White House. You cover the Trump administration on a daily basis. When you look at this impeachment inquiry, when you look at the evidence that has come forward so far, including the transcript, and we all know it's early, right? We know that there's going to be more information coming forward. We know that there's a second whistleblower. We don't have that information yet. There's more transcripts that we need to see. And I get it. There's a lot more information but based on what you know right now, Daniel, and I know it's early, do you think that there is enough there that in the end, Donald Trump will not be our president in 2020, not because he wasn't elected, but because he was impeached? Do you think that could and will happen?
Well, I think that he'll definitely get impeached, but I don't think he will get convicted by the Republican Senate because Mitch McConnell doesn't show that much interest in getting rid of Trump, and most Republican senators are still loyal to him. And so even though they might not explain away the call, they don't have a defense for that. They don't think that he deserves impeachment, or they're worried about their own political prospects if they go against Trump. And look what he's been attacking Mitt Romney nonstop because Romney shows some signs of not going along with the White House talking points.
Has he attacked Politico?
He's attacked Politico, once in a while, and so he's called different stories of mine and others fake. And so,
has he really? Has he said your name personally?
I've interviewed him and met with him. So,
what is that like?
Before he was in the White House. So,
what is that like, Daniel? I'm just curious. Well, you write an article, you're doing your job, you interview the president, and you have the president of the United. There's not many people in the world that can say that. You have the president of the United States, the leader of the free world, attacking you in your story. What's your reaction to that? How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm just doing my job, and so if he wants to attack me or Politico or any other journalist, that's his prerogative. I don't like that he sometimes chooses to do that, but that kind of indicates that you're relevant and that your stories are breaking through because,
there you go.
About how he's obsessed with polygraphing his staff, and
that's right.
He only does that when he knows. He's always talking about it, but he only does it when he knows that specific stories are true.
Daniel, you are so right on that. If he's not attacking you and you're a national reporter, then maybe you're not doing something right. That's a very valid point. Daniel, really, you guys at Politico do such a fantastic job, and we always enjoy it when you take some time to join us. Thank you so much for shedding some light on what's going on in the news of the day, and we really do appreciate your expertise. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Daniel.
There you go. Daniel does really a great job in laying everything out, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he really does.
And he's interviewed Trump before.
Yeah.
In person.
And Trump has attacked his articles.
Do you think that he fed him McDonald's prior to it?
I don't know.
Or after?
But the
It's very
fact,
possible.
I mean, how many people in the world can say that?
I
That they were attacked by the president of the United States verbally. And he makes a very good point. If you're being attacked by the president, you're obviously noticed.
You're clearly doing something correct.
You're noticed, and there's something that you did that the president doesn't like. He might make him look bad or make him look bad and shed some light.
We have 450 troops.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we have. That's not a lot of troops, Brian.
Well, it's enough to make a difference. There's no question about that. But we'll continue to monitor this story and follow what's going on as far as the Syria situation. But this is not another positive article for Donald Trump. So we're going to take a quick break. Gosh, when we come back, this is a wild story. It's a wild local story. We have a local attorney coming on our show. His name is Gerald Gillick. He runs a law firm downtown. There are homeless people that are defecating and urinating in front of his place of business, and it has been going on for quite some time. And I know he is not the only one that is dealing with this issue. He's going to join us in studio next to try to describe to us the hell that he's had to go through in front of his law firm. He'll be joining us next in studio, coming up right here. You've been listening to The Vegas Take. Be right back in just a few. This is the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN.